Welcome to the I'm Angry, Annoyed, and Amused podcast. You're on with Mike. So next to me is Matt.
What's up?
Over there's Johnny.
Yo.
Across the table's the other Mike.
Hello.
We're talking about, we're actually just in the middle of a conversation, so we're going to continue on with that. I was saying that I think that this 4 years is the most consequential in modern history. Definitely in my lifetime, for sure. I would argue probably in the last 40 years that it's the most consequential 4 years to change like a vote of a person. Like I think, and I'll just lay it out because that was confusing. I think if Trump does actually end up, the tariffs end up working in a year, right? Like right now, the markets are moving like too much.
Yep.
There's beef in the Ukraine. Like there's like a lot of issues going on. If that all gets smoothed out and it's actually a really good 4 years and America ends up prospering, like really doing well, I think the Democrats don't have a chance in hell of winning the next election, even though Trump won't be running, just because the idea of like he's the most evil person alive. He's going to destroy America. If it then does well, they got no leg to stand on, and people are not going to forget that so quickly, especially when it's him in the office. Vice versa, if it really does go bad, if we enter a full recession in the next year or two, right? If Ukraine and Russia like never ends, who knows, Israel, whatever, all these things go bad, the Republicans will be absolutely crushed in the next election because they're so tied to Trump that they will not be able to, at least soon enough, maybe another 16 years, but like next election, they will not be able to distance themselves enough from what just happened to win. So
And
I can see that.
I think to add on to that, because I've been saying this recently, and me and my friends have had conversations about it. I guess you could call, how do you call like the initial stance of kids getting older is shifting. I think for a long time,
like the earliest like demographic, like the youngest,
right.
the young adult
people
demographic.
Generally like late 2000s through the 2010s started from a like democratic, like a Democrat leaning sort of stance.
Most people were socially democratic,
right?
Because that was the side of like growing up in that part of like in that time. I agree, because I agree with you completely. The Democrats were labeled and for the time like really were like the party of progress in a good way, to be like racism's bad,
right?
That kind of thing.
Right,
but they've sort of
like,
flip-flopped
like
on that.
with Barack Obama, whatever. But I think people who are going to get the ability to vote in the next 4 years, that if you look at college kids late in high school now, kids starting high school now, they're because of like whatever trends going on the internet, are starting from a like, I love Donald Trump, let's see what happens kind of standpoint.
Well, they say that the vote changes over generations because just naturally, kids want to rebel against their parents in a way.
Right.
Yeah, right. Which is kind of what,
and they
what
go
I
in the
think is
opposite
what
direction.
which is what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not even so. But people, I think, I don't know. I could be wrong about this completely, but it seems people pay much more attention to politics over the last 10 years than they ever did before.
I mean,
too.
That's
don't
one
know.
of those things I can't
remember.
I can't speak on.
But yeah,
No,
Even
it
more the
seems
last few years.
But it seems
the last
like
10 years.
Am
Yeah.
I
the last 10 years.
I might be wrong in this, right? And this is actually a question I'm asking. It seems like politics were a big deal in like, I want to say like 60s through 80s, and then everybody stopped caring, and now they care again. But like you hear so much about some of these presidencies,
People
love-
right? Like
It must
you
be
hear
cool.
about the
Well, don't
Clinton,
forget, I
and
mean,
not just because of the
2008.
Lewinsky thing. Like you hear about the Clinton presidency, like it was like a big deal. The first Bush, like about things changing, and then I don't even know like 95 through like
'Cause I think-
2010. I guess Obama was a big deal
Obama,
just because he
I
was
think.
a black.
Well, and,
First
and
black
the
president.
But
as
his
well.
the only reason it's like a big deal, his presidency was not like this. They were the party of change. He didn't do anything that was different. They weren't
Marriage equality.
nobody.
What?
That's the only
Okay.
thing.
Also,
That's
he didn't go into office for that.
Well,
so.
I'm just saying.
No, he was
That
against. He was against gay
I
marriage.
understand what
There are
happened. I'm
things
saying
that
I
you-
know
that
what
was
I'm
the
trying,
key.
Matt. What I'm saying is he went in 08 against gay marriage. I'm saying he was the party of change, but then he was just status quo.
Yeah.
The big thing, obviously, like the reason why it's monumental is because he was the first black president, and that's fair. Like that's gonna be a thing that is a historical. I'm not disputing that. I just mean I don't see anything of his presidency that's like he's the guy who's like the outsider who's like finally it's time to change all this stuff. If anything, it got entrenched. Like I mean he right like what was the one thing that he was really known for? I'm not gonna-
Obamacare.
No. There was like one of the
Obamacare.
an espionage thing that he allowed. That like now is why they just can spy on all our phones. It was like an Obama
Oh, it was
era
like a
policy.
wiretapping thing.
It was like a wiretapping, but it wasn't. It's not the Patriot Act, which is like how it started.
Yeah.
He pretty much built on the Patriot
No,
Act.
yeah, he used
I can't.
the
There was a
Patriot
thing,
Act
but
to start. Yeah.
yeah, he would like wiretap, whatever. It doesn't really matter. I just mean that it wasn't like this real. The only change was that he would happen to be a black guy. Other than that, his presidency might as well have been the next Democrat.
Right.
It wasn't like this is the closer thing of like real change would be like this Trump presidency that everybody hates. But
That's why
the
everybody hates
change
him.
part is like he's like, no, the government's not working. Everybody says that all the time, and now we're changing the government. And now, it might not be for the best. I just mean that
He's changing
Obama's
things
8 years were
regardless
just
of what
status quo.
background changing
Right.
things. Right.
But what's your point, though? You were trying to make a point. You said
You were saying-
60s and 70s.
No, he was
No,
saying
you-
back-
I-
were saying
You
more-
were saying that people cared more in the last 10 years, but it seems like politics were big, and then they kind of reached like
'Cause I think
it feels like the 90s were really good for America for a lot of reasons,
And so people didn't care.
stopped caring.
Right.
But like there was during Cold War.
was
I
it
mean,
that, or did
it
people
feels
actually
like
do
end of the
more
Col-
then?
Well, like when the Cold War was going on, people were
think so.
scared. Like the Cuban Missile Crisis, people were paying attention. That wasn't like a thing that was like, they'll figure it out. That was like, we're gonna get nuked. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but people.
Am I wrong?
but
This is what I'm saying.
That's what
Maybe
I'm
I'm
saying.
wrong. I don't
People
know.
were like, they were attached to politics for those types of big issues,
Mm-hmm.
and when there wasn't big issues going on, yeah, it was just the politics of things, and nobody really cared. But now people are involved with politics, right? And this,
Okay.
I mean, arguably, we're not involved in anything big right now, right? We other than paying for things, we're not involved in any war, right? We
No,
don't have
no,
boots
we're
on the
not-
ground.
We're
boots
not
on the ground.
particularly.
Right? So like there's
Ever
none of that,
schizophrenic.
right?
Right.
You know, that there is, you know, like we were talking about before we started, right? People are suffering financially, right? So people care, but a lot of those people, the people you're driving by, and you know, they're not, you know, they care in a sense, in as much to vote, but they're not out there like in the '60s they were protesting the wars, right? So it just seemed like everybody was involved
right.
in that.
Yeah, that's okay.
You
that
know,
was
so-
what I meant,
so
but I get
that's
your
the
idea.
type of stuff, and that's the type of stuff that sticks in your mind.
Yeah,
right?
I
If
get
you
what you're
didn't
saying.
live through it, that's all you know.
Right.
It's like, you know, these protests were going on every day, everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
that's
now
fair.
we have stuff like that going on again, right? That they just started now protesting again in the colleges, right? So
What-
those
what are
things
they
stand out in
protesting?
your mind. The Israel
Oh.
thing, you know, that's starting to ramp up a little bit again. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just, and it might be me. I was distant from politics until 9/11 happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I started watching the news every single night, you know, to see what was going on. And that's when I got hooked.
Yeah.
And I started listening to different people and stuff like that. That was, you know, 30, 40, whatever old I was then, right? So I don't know. I just feel like it's and maybe it's just because I'm involved with it more. You know, I don't know if you guys, like, you don't pay a lot of attention to politics, do you?
I do. It's unavoidable. That's why I say like.
Yeah, so.
No, I
since
agree with your sentiment. It seemed like
as
there was a
long
gap.
as I agree with you. I can't go one way or another because all I remember. I only remember people being heavily involved in politics. Now, I believe that there
would
was a
be,
period of
you know,
time beforehand.
like if things settle down, there will be a gap, you know?
Yeah, no, yeah.
I mean, I don't, listen.
I guess I was
let
just,
me
I was
just
just
say it
asking. I was
this.
like, is it really is that really the case that it's like or is it just the recency bias of like the last 10 years are the last 10 years?
The first 3 years
Was
of
my point.
Trump's first term,
Right.
right? Outside of the fact that the left was ballistic, right? Hair on fire every night, you know, things weren't going terribly, right? Now, there's people that are going to argue this point, but if you look at all the numbers, like you could say he wasn't the greatest president in the world, fine, I don't care, but he wasn't the worst president in the world. He wasn't killing us. We were making more money. We were bringing more money into the country. There was no wars started. Like, there was good points about his, you know, and I only say the first 3 years because even like when COVID hit,
COVID.
I don't know what any other president would have done when COVID hit.
Yeah.
Right. And the fact that he had everything working against them, and these politicians, in my opinion, don't care about people at all. Right.
I agree with
They
that.
didn't care to work towards a solution because they wanted to see the guy fail.
They wanted more people to die.
Yeah.
And I
They-
believe that
They-
wholeheartedly.
They wanted to see him fail. They needed something to fail on, and that's unfortunate, right? And it's you know, it's ramping up again, right? This whole thing, this hatred of this guy, you know, blinds people to any good that he might do.
That's why they're bringing
Right.
back bird flu.
Yeah, bird flu's back.
And
I mean, I
the
didn't
mumps.
I didn't look into it because like you can't find things.
Can't
you
find
got to
things.
go
It's
down
very
to page
difficult.
99 on Google to find an article that says, you know, that what
just
you
gives
heard.
you, like,
And-
what's going
and you
on.
don't even know if that's true. But the only fact that you might believe it's true is because it's so buried. But you know, I guess before Biden went out, he killed, I don't know, 100 million birds or something like that because of the bird flu, which
that did happen.
I'm hearing didn't
That's-
exist.
The
right?
bird flu didn't exist?
Yeah, they're like,
No, they didn't all have bird flu. Apparently, it's like it's like once it like becomes viral, whatever, it'll affect all the birds very
so they just
quickly,
killed them all?
and then if that happens in large amounts, it becomes much more likely that it'll transition to a person, and then it becomes
which is why eggs are still expensive and going
right.
up.
But they did as like a from what I understand,
precaution.
as like a precaution. Like
mean,
let's say
that's fine,
10,
but, you know,
let's say
part-
10 birds got it, they killed 100,000 of them.
But we should know that, right? Like this is
yeah.
the problem.
That should be on news.
That they don't
News.
right. Well, they just say,
News.
well,
It's-
they get to use the egg prices.
They're only going to They're only
Yeah.
going to say the reason it's bad because he did it. You know,
Right.
he because in his first 6 weeks he didn't lower the price of eggs.
Yeah.
They're going to say, well, what are you doing? Look at this. He's messing everything up. And I'm like, that's not any way to report stuff.
Yeah.
Come out and tell us how many birds you had a cull because of the bird flu, right? And tell us if they're recovering those things now, and stop giving us nonsense.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That
I mean,
bothers me.
an honest news media would help the whole country exponent. Like
Tremendously.
I mean, I don't even
They're
know.
the ones that are
And
splitting
there
up the
isn't-
country.
I know, like
They're
that's the
ones
thing.
that are
It's
splitting
like the
up country.
politicians are sort of, it seems, at least now, they are generally oriented to take advantage of us.
Yeah,
that's
for
bad.
sure.
Everybody, but nobody. There's not an American that's like, I do hope that they are, but it's like it's like, but if the news would tell me the truth, then I can make an informed decision.
Exactly.
But it's like, but
You
they're
don't know.
now on the take. So now it's like, okay, you're right. So like for the bird flu thing, they just get to go, and like this is generally obviously an attack by the left. Is like, oh, Trump said egg prices are going to go down, and they're up in 6 weeks, and they'll never mention that, regardless of whose side you're on, whether it was a good idea, like it might have even been the right thing to do, but you're not going to call that an extraneous circumstance that they had to kill 100 million chickens,
I mean, I read an
You know,
article.
or 100,000, whatever it was.
I read an article a couple of weeks ago because I keep teasing you about the planes, right?
Yeah.
Everywhere
Yeah,
you go,
yeah.
you're hearing that there's,
Yeah.
there's an accident with planes,
Which is crazy.
And they want to say it's because he came in and he cut
and it cut FAA.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm reading an article. I think it was an AP article, and they said like, yeah, he came in and based on Doge's decision, right? It was Elon's fault. They cut all these people. In the same article, like 3 paragraphs down, it says, so that was from anonymous sources, right? That they fired all these people. 3 paragraphs down from 3 officials at the FAA or whatever it was said that never happened. It was X amount of people, under 100 or whatever it was. I don't even remember the numbers. And it wasn't people that were in those positions.
Yeah,
It
they're not
wasn't-
air
it
traffic
wasn't like the
controllers.
air
Right.
traffic control
Yeah.
guys. It was like maybe trainees or something that weren't in the positions yet. But I don't even know if that's true, right? But I mean, the fact that the headline says this, the first 2 paragraphs say this is what he did bad, and then 3 paragraphs down, you get an official statement that says that's not what happened. And, you
And it
don't
shouldn't be
know.
a hard thing to be honest
shouldn't be.
about. I don't think.
I look up things all
Right,
the time, and I
like
feel like I
personally.
can't find information on it.
Yeah.
What were we talking about earlier? I said you can't.
Oh yeah, I remember what that was.
There was something that I said. I said like you should be able to just go and pull those statistics up and know, like what is going on.
I mean, a lot.
Yeah.
Anything that has to do, I think personally, with government spending,
It
it
should
should,
be.
be as simple as looking it up.
It should be on a website.
It should just.
exactly.
It always should have been.
You should be able to find it.
It should be
There
now.
shouldn't be
It
9,000
shouldn't be
different reports from
difficult.
different organizations.
There
think
should,
that's-
there should be a
different
spreadsheet of
statistics.
where all the
They
money
should
goes.
know, right? Like,
Yeah.
and the government. I don't know why the government. I mean, I know the reason why is because they are corrupt and they are using the money for either nefarious reasons or handouts,
Right.
Like to
Yeah.
to themselves and each other. So that's why they can't know. But it's like, all right, but then isn't that a clear indication that they are doing it? Because wouldn't you do a head count? Right? Like the Pentagon's failed every audit. No,
Yeah.
like you're gonna tell me the Pentagon? They're like,
and you
oh
just-
my God, where'd that
You
money
just
go?
keep going. You're missing $1 billion. No big deal. Let's
but
move on.
But if a company gets audited by the IRS and they're like, oh my God, I did a wrong decimal place.
Right.
And this person got 100 extra dollars. They're like, you're closed down forever. Yeah,
Right? fines that you can't pay.
IRS is like,
right?
oh, it was only a $100 mistake, but it's a $100,000 fine.
fine,
So
right.
sorry, bud. Should have done that math better.
$100,000
Yeah, well, the
fine every
Pentagon
day.
though. Yeah, the Pentagon only lost $4 billion. Grow up about it is like the government's general response to all this stuff, which is crazy.
The IRS will give you, like, if you have to pay taxes, the IRS will give you a loan, basically, right, and allow you to pay the taxes, and then they'll charge you. They compound interest daily.
I owed taxes a couple years ago. Leonora, I forgot what she did with her job, but it messed up and she didn't know they did it. So when I filed my taxes, the guy's like, oh boy. I was like, well, he goes, you're going to owe. And it was a substantial amount.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. I don't really want to pay that right now. And he's like, I think it was when I was out of work and Presley was on the way. I was like, I want to kind of hold on to any cash I have. He goes, go on the website and, set up a payment plan. I went on this just to see it. It was like, you get like a few months to pay it off. You don't even get that long.
You don't even get that long, right.
And it was like interest. And I'm like, that's so unfair. I mean, I ended up paying it off like the next day because I'm like, I'm not giving you any more money. I guess I'll just deal with like not having that money in my bank. But I was so like, you're selfish little brats.
It's crazy.
Like, and it was so stupid. So stupid.
Yeah, but you should like all that money that they're talking about. Like I'm even like Doge. They keep saying all this money. That should be clearly out there somewhere exactly what it is.
All that shit.
Right? It shouldn't be. There shouldn't be anything that's wishy-washy about this.
I think that's on Musk. Like, I think that is. I think he's done very poorly.
Yeah.
He's like, I understand the speed thing, like component, and it's like it's hard to have it all. But I'm like, but if you're gonna announce it, if you're gonna put it on the website, make it out like
Don't
just
exactly what it is.
Yeah, like
he needs someone
did
behind
you cut
him.
it or are you not?
He needs someone like writing it and showing it.
No, I think that's been which is unfortunate because I know we've definitely talked about this, but it's such a good idea and it like the Doge in general, and it could be very effective, and it's like that's like just ended up with like the worst messenger.
Yeah,
and it might be good for finding. I don't know what they're doing. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know the actual role. I don't know what it means when they say we have treasury records and we're like looking through this stuff. I don't know what that means in a day-to-day. can't imagine like, you know what I mean? I don't know the tech part of it. I don't know why they call that like they're all hacking. I don't get it. Like, you know what I mean?
Well,
but just
right?
talk about it.
The fact that they're making payments with no tracking on them, right?
Right. Well, I understand the idea that they're looking and they're just saying there's a contract right now that the government is signed or whatever. I don't know what the word is. And it's $1 million that's going to, I don't know, whatever in wherever place. You know what I mean? In whatever stand, like for transgender youth.
Yeah, but they don't know. They don't.
But they're just saying we're just going to cancel that because that's ridiculous.
But some
in general.
of the money, they don't even know where it's going.
Right.
And then I know the Social Security thing. I get it. Like yes, if there's, and he brought it up the other day. He was on, I guess the Rogan podcast. I think he said it. He said no. He said the Social Security thing. He said the people that are on there that are 150 years old. He said they're not getting a check. He said, but the fact that they're active on it means somebody could take that information and use it to get something. Believe it or not, right? Like, so that's the thing.
I was hoping they would get. Oh man, there goes my theory of vampires existed.
You were hoping vampires existed.
I was hoping.
Vampires are not supposed. They should be financially set.
I mean, you think, but I mean,
after 400 years,
they would
you
learn
figure out
something.
a way, right?
If you can steal a little, why not steal a little? Especially in this government.
Social Security though is a massive scam.
Oh, it is.
Like it is a Ponzi scheme. They got lambasted for calling it that, but it literally like everybody thinks that the idea is you pay every paycheck your whole life. Some money goes to Social Security, and then at the end when you retire, you get your money back. That's not how. That's not what's happening.
No, you're paying for the.
You're
checks
paying
now.
for the checks now.
Right.
So then it's not.
It's
not a vehicle.
New generation
to
pay
right.
you.
So
but
which they won't.
Which is
but it's not an investment
which is why
vehicle.
my reverse plan works.
Well, which is what I was going to say.
Yeah,
That's it.
true.
Right.
True.
That's why my reverse plan.
You'd have to go way back in our
working-
podcast history to know what that one
The
was.
working generation
It's one of
should
the
pay for
first
the
couple
younger
of podcasts.
generation to not have to work.
That's
and
the way
then
it
when
should
you get
be.
older, you work.
But I think
but it's a faulty
information
system.
should be clearer. It is a faulty system, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be coming out with more clarity
I agree with
on
that
what
100%.
they're finding
Or
how,
nothing.
how
Or
they're
just
gonna
say,
fix
hey,
it.
in 2 years we're going to give you our
And
report.
I don't agree. I think there was a Supreme Court ruling today that said that Trump can't stop
I
these
saw that
payments.
the aid, yeah.
And I don't think that's right, man. I don't think that the courts should be deciding that.
Well,
The courts have a lot of power, which
Well,
is
this
very
is the thing.
strange.
Of course they have to.
And that's
The
not
courts-
the way it was supposed to be.
If I understand this correctly, the courts, right? They made that decision because at the end of the day, the purse, as they say, is Congress's, jurisdiction. The purse of America. Yeah. What I think, because this has been coming up a lot with all of the cuts that they're making, right? And I'm like, yeah, but isn't part of the issue, and this is one of those weird things where it's like, everybody does agree, everybody in the country agrees, but depending on who's saying it, half and half have to say no or yes kind of thing, which like annoys me.
Always.
It's like, I understand that Congress has the power of the purse. So if you want to make cuts, they have to go to Congress. But when you're looking at like Doge, right? When you're talking about, well, we're looking for government, like misappropriated funds. It's Congress's fault. So now you're going to go, hey, Congress, can you please cut the funding that you're giving out to these mysterious organizations.
When the money's
And
coming
the money's
back to
coming
those
back.
guys.
Like
So that-
everybody thinks what's happening is that Congress is allowing money to go out that eventually trickles back to them. Like nobody thinks that every
How-
congressman is like,
how do
they're
we
like,
ever-
no, we're the only
Yeah.
legit guys, and the money's somehow circling back. That's what's going on.
It's the
so then
one-
you're gonna let them. We've investigated ourselves and found no wrongdoing.
It's the-
Right? It's like the
Well,
it's like
that's
the thing.
the one
Yeah.
loophole in our government is those people have all the control.
Exactly.
Because the money.
They have-
I mean, because it really is
Well,
about
because
the money.
But the money comes back to them, right? There's no term limits, so you get a job there. You're there for 40, 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
No problem. So all the graft that you could take, you take, right? Because it doesn't matter because the guy
Yeah.
next to you is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
They're all in cahoots. They give themselves raises, right? Like they shouldn't be able to approve their own raises.
Absolutely
That
not.
should have been with somebody else to do, right?
that
And
to
it should
the
only
court.
been based on whether or not you're doing a good job, like
Yeah.
anything else.
Like, you know what I wouldn't. I mean, I think those just what they're doing right now is like, it's okay. I think it'd be better if it was clear because it's like very hard to
Listen,
understand
it's
what's being
only
cut.
been 6 weeks.
No, for sure.
There's
What-
got to be a ton. I mean,
I'm sure.
more than a ton
No,
of stuff that they're going.
Yeah, but
I
why
was gonna
announce
say-
without the detail? I think
I agree with
that's
that.
the
I
thing. It's
think
like why
they-
announce?
I
If
think
you're
they
going
have-
to, if you're not, if you're going to wait for the end of the 2 years and say, hey, here's our full
I
detailed
don't know.
report.
I think they have
3,000
more
pages you can
details
read
than they're
through.
putting out.
But then
which
put
is
'em out.
wrong. I know they should. They should, but I think they're digging through.
Well, they could
Listen, when
be-
you look at something like that, you find problems immediately. You do.
But you don't have to announce it as you
Well,
find.
I
maybe
just
they're
wanna-
doing
wait
that to
until
show
you
that
get
they
the
are
detail.
doing work.
Yeah.
But now, because
Yeah.
people are probably
Yeah,
like,
right.
oh, they're not
People say
doing
they're
nothing.
not doing anything. Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure there's reasons, and there's probably also like I don't know if we've talked about this like on the podcast, but I think also part of the idea was this blitz that like the Trump administration is doing, Musk included, like with Doge, to like overwhelm the pushback because they knew they were going to get pushback on every single thing they did. So it's like if we just hit them with everything at once, they won't be able to roll back they won't be able to fight us on everything.
Right.
So and if again they might not be doing the right thing, right? That's the question. But assume that they are. If you can assume that they are, right, and that the people fighting against to get that money back are the ones who are or are the fraudsters, then they're like, okay, if we can get $1 billion off, and then they rake back 500. At least we got half a
win.
billion.
Right.
You know,
win.
that like I think that's part of it. I'm not gonna like say that they shouldn't be. I think they absolutely should. Anything that you're cutting, it should be very obvious. Put the thing out there, say what it is. But what I was gonna say is, what I think, like as talking about this, what I think would be great. It would be, I'm sure, fought back a ton. I mean, the most if Trump started like another Doge type thing, and its only thing was looking at congressmen and where their money comes from, and
that'd
make
be
all of
beautiful.
that completely public, blast it, and in their state, put it on every billboard,
That'd be great.
just to say, because the only way that it really changes is if in the midterms, forget about who wins, Republican or Democrat, we have a full new Congress
Right.
of new people who are like, this is crazy. I've been seeing this. I just noticed that my congressperson has made $12 million in the last 6 years from money that they like can't really.
we said
they
this
can't really,
before.
They
I-
can't really
I-
claim.
I was
you
saying
know, I
earlier-
ran, and it's like a normal person who's like, I want to do the right thing for the country. If we could get the entire Congress to be those people, then there might be actual, real, concrete change.
We were saying, I was like, I've made more money than some of these people make in their salaries, and I'm
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah,
regular,
and
and,
you-
they're all millionaires.
And
I don't
millionaires, they
know.
own
I-
3 houses.
I have nowhere near
Right,
millions of
I'm not
dollars.
Bernie Sanders.
And I'm like, how are they doing it?
And it's like, and it feels like one of those things where it'd be like the simplest. How'd you make your money?
Right.
And then it's like, I'm a Congress. I don't know.
Well, your 200,000 salary.
Like they just kind of like mumbled through a
Yeah,
thing,
no,
right?
They,
Like
they should definitely be audited, man. Those guys should be looked at because they're definitely listen. They're all making money. There's
start out
no
Congress
way-
IRS.
There's no way
Yeah.
you make that salary.
No, you wouldn't.
They're all
multi-millionaire.
crooks.
And they
But
shouldn't
make
be
it,
also.
make it so incredibly public. Make it a big deal.
Yeah.
You know
So
what?
that you have normal.
Again, those are the guys that control.
But the same
everything.
thing with that.
Well,
Like,
right. That's what I'm saying.
They'll immediately make a law that you can't report.
Of course.
somebody's,
They're targeting
earnings.
us.
With some of
We're
the-
citizens too.
Yep,
It's like,
exactly.
Another
Right.
thing that I'll do, because some of the jobs I work for, I have to get badges for these buildings just to go. And I have to tell them if I trade and what I trade because they're trading companies. You probably have the same thing.
I gotta do
And the
this.
same thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not allowed to do that trading because, meanwhile, they're all trading
Yeah.
in the stocks that they are fighting.
But they
fighting
can't.
or
They
not.
can't personally trade. There's rules
Right.
about
They,
that.
okay. They have their
But
little
that,
thing.
again, that's like
But
the
they all-
easiest workaround
Exactly.
in the world.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's fair. So we're all stupid. That's bad. I should be trading for you. You should be trading. I'll give you all
Right.
the secrets. I know
Right.
you, and you guys
I have
trade.
no
We'll
secrets.
trade
But
for
if-
each other.
But the difference is, if I told my girlfriend,
Yeah.
they would find the IRS.
Oh, yeah, they
would find
would
out
find
I was
out.
insider trading.
Exactly.
It wouldn't be that
Exactly.
hard for them.
No.
But when it's Pelosi, they're like, No, he's just a genius.
Just
Just-
incredible.
He's just the
Just-
smartest
he's the
guy
smartest
guy
ever.
better than Buffett.
He's just the smartest guy
Just
ever.
better than every other person.
Yeah, they need to
Yeah.
lock them down, but it's not going to happen because they control.
Because they're the
them.
ones right.
Right.
You
But
know,
this is the thing where
so the
if-
only way to expose it is for somebody like Doge, Elon,
That's what I'm
and his
saying.
crew.
Doge.
And make it a
I
non.
get so tired of people saying his 20-year-olds like. There's smart people out there. Man.
Yeah,
And
I agree
I don't
with
know
that.
why they got to downgrade.
I just
whoever's
mean-
working on it.
What do you mean?
And I don't
Oh,
Because he
believe.
hired
right.
like a bunch of young people, and they're like,
and
"You're gonna
yes,
have a 19-year-old in
Matt,
charge
I
of
I
the
mean, most
treasury?"
19-year-olds are dumb.
Elon may
21s
be
are
in
dumb.
it for his companies or whatever, but he's not out there. He's not looking to steal Social Security numbers.
I
and
don't
start
think. Yeah,
scamming
I,
the
was,
government.
I don't think.
Or taking like money from people.
That's what I
not,
always say.
The
is
guy
that,
doesn't need a freaking.
I just don't
I
get
think
that.
attacking
mean-
the idea. Of course, I think that he is getting something out of it, but it's not. That doesn't.
I don't care.
Both can be true. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you get something out of a close relationship with Donald Trump, and at the same
Everybody
time,
in
do something
politics is doing
productive,
that.
there's no-
They're
I
doing
don't-
it for the to get something
I
out of
don't
it.
see him being.
I see.
Like,
What's funny is he has
dishonest on this. Like,
he has the least of everybody in the government. Every single individual.
That's what I say.
I think he has the least to gain.
He's the richest
in the
person in the
world,
world.
in
already-
the world,
world.
he's got the least to gain.
The
by anybody
least
in the
to
world.
gain.
People
so
are
they're
gonna
just
say
like,
he's-
no, he's the one. He's the crook. He's
He's
trying to
the
steal
guy.
from all of
He's
us.
gonna steal
So
from us.
weird, man.
Because they're all
for
saying
him
he's
to do
doing it
that-
for he's doing it for contracts and stuff.
Yeah, to make
for
more money.
SpaceX.
Right.
But like everything he's doing, like I'm not a big SpaceX. I don't really care about space and like exploring it unless I get to go. That'd be cool. But
That's his
Like-
goal. He
You
wants to
could apply.
colonize Mars.
that,
so.
I know that's true.
They want young people though, Jim.
Right, to me. But I feel like no matter where he goes, people will fund him anyway because of how great he's been with stuff, So I don't really think he needs to.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to go this route and like
This is not-
tarnish
Doesn't- it
himself.
just doesn't make
Not what
sense.
it- right,
to me.
exactly.
It just doesn't
It's
make sense.
hurting him.
That to me,
It's
doesn't,
hurting
like,
him.
Yeah.
Because
I mean-
people who hate him now won't buy his cars, won't.
Right, they're
his stock's
destroying
gonna-
Teslas,
Right.
like-
So he has no reason to do this. He's doing this because he really loves America and shit.
Even
dare
if
I say
it's,
it
well, this is the
wants
thing.
to make America
Even if
great
it's
again.
not that, even if he has some ulterior motive,
Right.
I don't
Doesn't
see how
matter.
it could
It's productive
possibly
anyway,
be
right?
money.
Right.
It's not money.
How
It's
could
not
it
money.
or like Tesla stock? I'm like, has Tesla been performing poorly? It's the same
It's
thing.
people to send to Mars, but
Fine, okay, if that's
He-
the ulterior
he's trying to
motive,
get us.
if he just thinks that governments won't let him do that,
He's
and the only way to
stupid.
do it is to be sort of in the government, but also like, okay, you're gonna hit your, like you're Trump, you're like the Trump guy. So yeah, if the 4 years goes well, but like you're not, he doesn't have a permanent position.
Right.
He's not going to run for president. So
No.
it's like, so what? He has to do it now. SpaceX has to happen
In the next
He's going to
4
Mars
years.
in the next 4 years.
well, that's what I say. It's,
Like
I
that
don't
doesn't
think
make
that'd be
sense.
I don't think it's a
cool.
negative thing at all. I think it's just something to point at him and say. I don't think it's like.
Well, right.
Of
Well,
course
no, it's
you know what I
nonsensical.
mean?
Is the
Like,
thing? It was
Yeah,
the same
exactly.
thing.
It's
The
fully
Trump,
nonsensical.
the first Trump. I mean, they did it again, but like the first Trump election, I guess you could say, or presidency, whatever. That they were like, it's the Russia thing. Or one of the funny, craziest ones to me is they're like, the only reason he became president is because he's in debt, and he needs to like make his money back to pay all these. They're like, we did his, he didn't do his tax reports because he's in debt. And I'm like, okay, even if you were right, he was insolvent. How is the best solution to become the president of the United States?
Yeah.
Like I'm seeing now with all this Ukraine stuff going on, that there are people, and look, it might be bots. This is the part of the issue. Like you can't even read, you can't like go on threads and
Like, you
assume
don't
it's a real
post something.
person
Right,
anymore.
exactly.
Everything.
I can't even say at least one
and even
individual.
if it is a real person, they might just be saying it to be controversial.
For sure,
on
right?
Yeah.
So like,
purpose,
there's
so
all
it's not
that,
even,
but I've seen this across things, so I feel like there must be some at least. Maybe it's not a real person, but there's a narrative there being pushed by somebody. But that Trump again, and this is definitely like they've said this on the news, so this is like one of those. But that Trump is a Russian operative,
Yeah.
right? And then, but then you're like, well, what? Why? How is that the thing, right? And then apparently, right, the story begins in the 80s when Trump he was like in debt, of course, again, and Russia bailed him out, some Russian billionaire, and since then he's been in the pocket of the Russian oligarchs. And I was just thinking, I was like, okay, so if really the plot here is that Putin or whoever, Putin was so smart, whatever Russian oligarch was so smart that in the 80s when Trump was I don't even think he was even what's it called yet. He wasn't even on TV.
No,
he was
not in the
just
80s.
a rich guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're like, this is the one. He's gonna
He's gonna be
he's gonna
president.
go on to be the president in 35 years. And then we know whatever's going on with the rest of the political world will be in the perfect opportunity for Russia to like that was before the USSR fell. And they were like, yeah, we know that'll happen, but then we'll become Russia, but we're going to have to give up Ukraine, but then we'll have Trump in office in 20 years to give us Ukraine back. Like, that doesn't make
We know that's all
any
nonsense.
sense.
That's all
I mean, that makes
But people
that's-
think it. But people really, there are
I don't
people.
know how.
There's an
Conspiracy
app- This is the thing.
theorists.
No, you're only a conspiracy theorist if you voted red. If you voted blue,
Oh.
you're
Stupid.
right or something.
right.
No, you're right.
You're
Like,
right.
anything you think is wrong with the world is correct.
Oh.
Is how I've figured out. That's what it seems like to me. That's the through lines.
Listen, the guy's not stupid. Like I told Johnny this before. He's not stupid. You know, whatever his father gave him, he turned it into billions.
Oh,
right?
Trump, I thought you were talking about Musk
You
still.
know,
Yeah.
So, you take millions and turn them to billions, you're still smart,
You're
in my
smart.
opinion. And there's not a rich person in the world that wouldn't tell you that they failed at something before they became rich or while they were rich, things still
What's
failed.
that? That's not even the thing. I just
They're
mean that the argument
they're
of it
into
is so
many
stupid.
stuff. Yeah, the argument's stupid. That's like AOC coming out and saying Elon Musk's an idiot.
Dumbest thing in the world.
How? How do you say that? How do you say that? I mean, come on, man. Like, how stupid can you be?
Yeah.
Did you see her NPR thing?
No.
Oh man, there's a couple clips that have been going around. I haven't listened. I'm not going to because I can't listen to her for that long. But there was like clips going around of a couple. She was on like an normal. I don't know the guy's name. NPR interview. And there was two of them that were like especially funny. So the guy said, excuse me. He's like, okay, so you Democrats or the left or whatever have been saying that they're worried about Trump like weaponizing the justice system, right? And he says, well, what would you say? And she's like, yeah, of course, because like they're gonna, they've said they're gonna come after us. He's like, well, what would you say to people who would argue that you guys have already been doing that and continue to do it? And she's like, can you give me an example? I just don't think we're doing that. And he's like, the people would probably say Trump being on trial. And she's like, no, well, a jury of his peers found him guilty. And it's like, are you that stupid, or you just obviously she can't answer the question because it wasn't politically motivated. But it's like that is the argument. It's like, well, a jury. So I'm like, okay, so as long as you get to the jury part, leading up to that that's all like a mystery. As long as they get convicted by a jury of their peers, I'm like, no, that's not. Nobody thinks that that's where the corruption's happening.
Right.
They think it's that he never got brought up on this, and then all of a sudden he's running for president, and 6 months before, a year before, all of a sudden New York found this case against him.
Yeah.
That's the political corruption. That's the targeting.
And all those cases
Not
are
the,
so twisted.
not like the. No, of course. I just mean it's like, you know what I mean. Like they'll take one thing and they'll say, well, they found him guilty of it. Are you saying that was fake?
Yeah.
It's like, well, no, but you can't just investigate. We've talked about this. Where it doesn't work. Justice in America isn't find. This is the guy. Go through all his books with a fine-tooth comb and find a crime.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's not how it works. It just isn't. That's how they do it. That's the
And they
political
barely
targeting.
found the crimes. They had to twist
No,
laws
right.
around.
Right. I just mean it's clearly a political persecution.
That people
Crazy.
believe that this guy is such a crook and he's this and he's that.
And they haven't gotten really anything on
And
him.
they've gotten nothing on him. Like
That's the
this
worst.
wasn't, like I said, he wasn't fighting Joe Schmo in the street. He was fighting the government or states in all of these cases. And
convicted
they couldn't
felon.
get him on anything except a twisted law that every developer in the city probably does, right?
Yeah.
The best is
inflates
all
the
these
numbers,
people
so-
that are calling him a convicted felon that hate him for it, probably all subscribe to Martha Stewart magazines, and like
Yeah.
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's a good point. I know the convicted felon thing's funny because I'm like, okay, I know, like, and maybe right now, if you ask that person, you're like, are you telling me you wouldn't vote for a convicted felon for any public office?
Yeah.
Like, they might say, no, I would never. But it's like, but if I asked you that 10 years ago, and I said, I don't think felons should have any role, they would be the people who are like, no, they turned their life around.
Right,
They-
exactly.
Right.
That
They
is
came
the
out,
that's
they're
the
better
party
now,
of
Exactly.
that is the party of like, no, like
You
people
have
are
to let them-
people.
right, exactly.
That's they're that part. They were now, but when it's one person, they're
There's
like,
one
no,
person, it doesn't
he
count.
did a nonviolent financial crime, and he should be.
He should hang.
Yeah, he should hang. Right? It's like okay, whatever.
Everybody
like they don't
else,
mean anything. They
Everybody
just
else
don't
can be
mean anything.
rehabilitated. You
Right?
can get back in the government. You should be allowed to vote. You should be able to do whatever you want.
Right. I mean, the bleeding heart liberal is literally a phrase.
Exactly.
But it's like no, not for
But
not
if
for
it's
him.
him, forget about it. Oh, that's it. Put him away for life.
Yeah, like a nonviolent monetary crime.
It's insane.
Whatever.
Anyway, we went over. We didn't even get to where we wanted to go, but I guess we'll pick it up in
That was good.
episode 2.
Yeah. Part 2.
Part 2 of this. We'll continue on this topic, and we want to talk a little bit about this war, this Ukraine war.
Yeah.
All right. Well, tune in next time then.
Yeah, tune in
Tune in
next time
next
for
week.
that one. Anyway, thanks for listening, and as always,
Stay angry, annoyed, and amused.